Hi, thanks for watching. This is some highlights from our online sessions that I call the Inner Sanctum online sessions. And I edit out about 40 minutes from our teachers free for you to watch, because people that join our online sessions, it is a paid service. It is part of the way I make a living and help other teachers promote their work. So if you'd like to join the online Inner Sanctum group sessions, we have a guest teacher once a month, and I teach once or twice a month deliberate creation and energy exercises and how to tap into your intuition and how to be more psychic and all that good stuff. Please sign up on the website Swain/Inner Sanctum. So I hope you join us if you're somebody that wants to make a difference in this world and feel like you've got something to share and you'd like a little support team and meet other teachers and meet some of the guests I have on the show and hear wonderful stories and wonderful teachings. So enjoy the highlights. And welcome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody as normal and just get Xane to do a little introduction, put you on speaker and say welcome to the Inner Sanctum, Xane Daniel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now let's hear a little of your story. Like, we've had you on the show and it was a great show that I had with you, and we did a crystal activation at the end. But for people that, I'm going to upload some highlights to YouTube, for people that haven't seen you before, just let's hear a little bit of your story. You grew up in a family of scientists and your father worked as a chemist working on the H-bomb and had a personal computer in the 70s. I love that.
That's right. Yeah, my grandfather actually. So when I was a kid in the 70s or the early 80s, he actually taught me how to program a computer. And not too many grandfathers in the 80s can teach their grandsons how to program a computer. So I was surrounded by that. My father was an electrical engineer. My uncle on the other side was an electrical engineer. So I just had it all over me, around me. And so we really looked at spirituality as a non-conversation at all. You know, there was no talk of it. There was no talk of religion. No, I never went to church. So for us, the idea that we all had special gifts that we came here specifically to help others with was just like a joke, right? Like that's a superhero comic book or something, right? And so, you know, it took a long time for me to make this big of a transition. And of course, it took an ayahuasca experience for me to actually do that. And ultimately, what I realize now is that what we're doing when we're working in this spiritual world as light workers, that we're actually just doing things that is science, but science hasn't figured it out yet. And so there's really no difference between the spiritual world and the science world. It's just that in many cases in the science world, they've decided that it's not possible. And so they kind of stop evaluating it. And mostly because it comes from personal experience, from experiential proof, which in the science world is the lowest possible form of proof, is experiential. But now everything's getting twisted upside down for them, because in the quantum science world, the highest, most important thing is experiential proof. And so that's why they're all reeling from it. And that's why it's taking them so long to get their poor little heads wrapped around it, is because it doesn't make any sense for all the things that they've been studying and doing and figuring out since Isaac Newton figured out that apples fall from trees and gravity. So, you know, it's a process. And for once, we're kind of ahead of the scientists. And so we all plan to take full advantage of that in helping each other to expand, to grow, to raise our vibration and become these, you know, enlightened beings.
Look, absolutely, Xane, absolutely. I remember when I was, helping my second husband, understand the law of attraction, and I had asked him what he wanted, and he said, I've never traveled. I really want to travel. And anyway, unbelievable circumstances fell into place, and we traveled the globe together, and people gave us money to do it, and oh my God, stuff happened. And even after this experiential proof that our thoughts create our reality, and we experience this, we're still bombarded with thought forms and beliefs that, is that possible? Like, it happened to
Oh
me,
yeah.
but still doubt, still
Oh yeah.
doubt.
Well, it's really important that we still doubt. We came here and forgot who we truly are. We came here specifically to forget who we truly are, because as source is infinite, and source has universal knowledge because it is the only thing that exists. So there is a lack of things and there's an abundance of things, no matter what being you choose to be. As source, the lack of things is the lack of the terrestrial emotions, which are the emotions that we experience here on a day-to-day basis. Why does why is source not able to experience those experiences? Because it knows that it's infinite, and all of our terrestrial emotions come from the fact that we can die. So the only way for us to experience unconditional or romantic love, surprise, excitement, sadness, fear, all the emotions that we experience on a day-to-day basis, is to forget that we are infinite and believe that we can die, and believe we have all the limitations that we have when we're here. So it works out perfectly for us. This is what we asked for. So instead of running away from the experiences, the negative experiences that we get to have while we're here, I talk an awful lot about turning and facing them and enjoying them, even though they're hard to enjoy, and diving in and really experiencing them and really feeling them from that perspective of the observer. Oh, what does this feel like? And you can even call yourself in the third person. Oh, what is Xane experiencing right now? Look how angry he is, or look how afraid he is. Boy, what does that feel like for him? And so from that perspective, then you're not completely surrounded by your emotions, but you're having an opportunity to experience them in the best possible way. Because if you decide, I don't want these emotions anymore, and you try to just pretend like everything's fine, then what are you doing? You're saving it for later, and you're going to end up experiencing them at a different point. Or you're going to cause yourself all kinds of stress and pain and so forth as your body tries to absorb this emotion that you're not allowing to yourself to feel. And so you're going to end up with emotional burdens, heavy weights on your shoulders, and tightness in your chest, and all the different physiological feelings. And you might just carry that for the rest of your life because you didn't deal with it when you had the opportunity to. And so that's the other thing that I spend a lot of time doing, is helping people release those sorts of things so that they can finally walk on air again instead of walking in the muck.
What I'm looking at the moment, Xane, with the situation that's happening in our world. And down under, we've really had a whammy. We had the fires over Christmas, New Year. Well, we actually had the fires for months and months. They were just really heightened over Christmas and New Year.
Right.
And we had the floods. And the floods were actually more damaging to many people than the fires. The people that survived the fires did not survive the floods, many of them. And now we've got the pandemic, which is not an Australian thing, it's a global thing.
Right.
But what I'm seeing is, as all this trauma happens, how we push against it and say, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. And one thing that my guides, or I say Gaia, said to me was, remember to thank the fires as you pray for rain. And when you look at the bush and you see the regeneration of the bush after the fires, it's unbelievable. And during the fires, you can't sort of fathom that you could thank something that's so destructive. But then the aftermath, you can. And I think that that's happening globally to us at the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing en masse is this push against it, this fight to survive, this push against the virus. And I posted on Facebook yesterday, somebody had tuned into the energy of the virus and what does the virus want to say to us. Did any of you read that? And oh, it's so beautiful. And when you look at it from this perspective, that what the virus is doing, the shutdowns, how things are shifting, Mother Gaia has a opportunity to regenerate as humans stay indoors and don't fly and don't do a lot of things that we do,
Drive.
and drive, and oh wow, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So while we're in the thick of it, it seems to be human nature to push against it and say, this is terrible, this is terrible. But can we be in the thick of the contrast that we've come to experience, as you said, And can we love it? Like, can we
Hmm.
challenge ourselves that when we're in the thick of it, can we love it? What do you
I
think?
think very much so. And I mean, okay, so of course, the other thing that I talk a lot about is the fact that we are all source.
Mm,
And so everything that happens here, we've created. And
mm,
so why wouldn't we love our creation? Why wouldn't we love the fact that we are creating this very interesting, dynamic, difficult, challenging, exciting, beautiful, paradisical, this unbelievable world? There's no reason not to love that. And we can ask, oh, why did it happen? Well, part of that is our three-dimensional brains that need to understand and label everything. So, that's part of the problem. We can kind of let a lot of that go. But you can ask why, and you can say, for the transformation, for the change, for the lessons, for the opportunities. I mean, if you follow one of my favorite channels is Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
mm-hmm.
And the reason that I love him so much is because he talks about two things. And really, it's both of them are synchronicity. And my favorite part about this, as it applies to our experience that's happening right now, is that his entire society from the planet Ssani lives based on synchronicity. And so anytime anything negative at all happens to their society, they all get excited because they know that it means it's paving the way or clearing the way for something new, amazing, and beautiful. They just don't know what it is yet. And it's okay that they don't know what it is yet. They don't have to know what it is yet. They just know that it is for the better. And as soon as this really got kicked into gear, where we're realizing that, oh, we're going to have essentially like martial law across the world,
Mm-hmm.
I realized, oh my gosh, there's going to be so many amazing things that are going to come from this. And I was just talking to somebody for like an hour yesterday, and we were just naming off all the potential things. It was great fun. And one of my favorite things that I just keep saying over and over again to people that I know, and so this will be the first time that someone else gets to hear it, is our capitalist society, our free market society is a very interesting experiment, essentially. And what we're suddenly seeing is where it doesn't work, because we now, we're closing all these things off, and we go, oh, we should have closed off the stock market because now it's at a level that we've never seen before. The drop is at a level we've never seen before. Shoot, we should have paused that too, right? We should have just paused everything. Wonderful. Okay, just pause everything. Oh, wait a minute. If you can pause our free market system, then what we're essentially saying is, remember when you were in school and you were playing tag and your shoe got untied and you just said, time out, and everybody stops and you get to tie your shoe and then you could just resume the game? Well, that's what we're doing. So this giant force of nature, the economy, is suddenly going to be So why are we doing it the way that we're doing it? This
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make any sense. This isn't necessarily fair for all. Maybe we should make some adjustments to this. Maybe this is our opportunity to come in and redesign some things. I really am excited about that among all the other potential things that could happen as a positive as a result of this.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I loved that you reminded us about Bashar when, what did you say? When contrast, when negatives get things happen, they all get excited. They all get excited.
Mhm.
uh,
Right. Yeah,
mm,
and that's definitely where I've been ever since it started. Yeah, sure. There's going to be a lot of passing of people, and
yeah.
that's going to be tragic, and people are going to really suffer as a result of that tragedy, and that's not something to be excited about.
Well,
But at the same time, it's an opportunity for people to learn that you are not infinite in this world, but you are infinite anyway. And so, hopefully people can learn that, experience that, and feel that unconditional love. But others won't, and they will suffer, of course.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of suffering. Absolutely. I don't know if the tragedy is the deaths. The tragedy is that we don't understand what death is. And the tragedy is
Sure.
that we beat up on ourselves so much when death happens. It's all, look, it's happened to all of us. You know, me, like, I don't know, people drop like flies around me. The death queen, the death doula. But, you know, when somebody you love dies, yeah, there is tragedy involved. And I think it's the tragedy of, anyway, tragedy, just like you say with the Asani, tragedy is a way of bringing up, getting excited because there's transformation happening.
Hmm.
And the transformation, death, as I put the book out, you know, Awakened by Death, the transformation through death happens to you.
Right.
The transformation happens to you as you believe your stressful thoughts and get upset and you feel the loss of this love. You start looking for that love again, and you find that that love lives within you. It never lived in the person that you looked at in a physical body. It was always within you, and their love is within you. It's all within us, you know.
Hmm.
So death is um, such a transformative thing to go through.
Right. And again, it is the reason that we're here. It's the reason that we're here because we get to experience all of the terrestrial emotions,
Mm-hmm.
because again, we couldn't experience them otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Also breathing, right? Think about our spirit versions of ourselves, our higher selves, the source, whatever, the collectives that might be looking at us and going, wow, these guys all get to breathe. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if they could feel jealousy, which I'm sure they can't, they might be jealous of the fact that we get to breathe and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that we get here that we came here for, and the lack of breath here is death. But the lack of breath in the spirit world is infinite life or infinite existence.
Amazing perspective. Well, we didn't get too much into your story because we kind of got straight into it.
I
And
know, but I love talking about this stuff now.
I
My
know.
story is like, yeah, it's good, but let's talk about this.
I know. Well, your story really is for me to upload to YouTube, so you know, to sort of promote you on my channel, really. But you know, what I wanted to talk to you about too was last time we spoke. It was in I looked at it. It was in May last year, and you know, you had you sort of you've done a lot since then. You've
I
changed.
have.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because
Sure.
so you've had this awakening. You spoke about on the show that you had the awakening through working in the computer console video gaming industry. And look, I loved that part of the story where you talked about, you know, the next version coming out. Can you just remind us of that? That was, and then the anger of people and how you went, oh my God, what am I doing?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about Mortal Kombat 10.
Mhm.
I got to work on Mortal Kombat 10, and it's kind of funny to say I got to because it is really one of those things in the video game industry where people want to work on the biggest names in the industry. People want to work on oh, I had it and then I just lost it. See, now that I'm not in it anymore, I don't remember the Fortnite, right? Everybody would love to have worked on Fortnite. That's the biggest probably game right now. But at the time, which was really not that long ago, was working on Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat 10, the whole Mortal Kombat series is all about advanced brutality. And in every version, they had to outdo themselves from the previous version to in shock value. So I mean, and if you know the starting point, the first Mortal Kombat, it was that one of the fatalities was ripping the spine out of your opponent. That was Mortal Kombat 1, right? So now we're 10 versions later, and how are we going to outdo all that? That sounds like a tall order. Well, so what they did, and I was just working on a version of it. Somebody else had designed this. Was they made it so that on a critical hit, there would be a camera zoom in with X-ray vision so that you could see the bones breaking and sharding all over the inside of the body and the person screaming and all of that, so that you would have that whatever gross satisfaction of your brutality, right? So now we're working on this thing and we've got to get the version of it done by a certain date because we'd promised the fans that it was going to be done by that date. And we were running into some issues getting it released on time. And I think we were 4 or 8 hours late, something like that. And by our 8th hour of being late, we were getting phone calls to our office with death threats to us and our families for not having released the game when we said we would. And I remember the owner of my company just being like, what in the heck is wrong with these people? And I just started laughing at him. I said, think about the audience. If they don't get their brutality, then they're going to get it in another way. So this is what you're appealing to right now. And it was great because he just had this, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Like, because we just get in the industry, we just looked at everything as, well, it's just a game. So we didn't take it as seriously as the rest of the world because we just didn't think of it in that way. So going through that really made me go, I am not contributing to society in any good way doing this. And I was well along my way on my awakening, but I wasn't all the way because I still had fear of survival without that job. And so I continued to work that job for another 2 games after that before I finally ended my career as a producer in the video game industry.
Wow, it's a powerful story. It's a powerful story, and you know, the video game industry, the metaphor for life is such a great metaphor for life. Really, if only we took this life as, you know, as kind of like that video game, like we do the video game, and sort of less seriously, and understand that our eternal nature is the person that's witnessing, that's playing the game, you know, and we're the actors on the stage. And anyway, it's a brilliant metaphor. But yeah, the violence in the video game industry, I'm not into it at all, so I don't even know what video games are about.
I'm totally out of it now too.
Yeah,
I as soon as I was done, and really the last couple of years I didn't care. I was just doing it to make my income.
mm-hmm. So what's been happening since we spoke last? You've sort of lots.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I had already sold my house in Chicago when we spoke, but I did not hadn't set out on the road yet. So I was in a synchronistic and manifestation experience completely. I had been wanting to live in a camper van and drive around the country as kind of my next stage. And what I had done is I had done very, very basic vision board where I just cut out a picture of a camper van that looked pretty much more like a regular work van than like a camper. And I posted it on my wall in my house. And I knew, but I just said, well, I know I'm getting this. You know, I don't know how, but I'm getting it. And I had picked out the model number, the number of miles, the year, you know, this whole thing. I knew exactly what I was going to buy. And I was going to be buying a commercial van that was completely empty, that I would have to add all the bed and the kitchen and the solar panel on the roof and all the different things that I wanted in my new house on wheels. So that's what I was expecting. I was expecting to buy an empty van and do that work myself. And so I had moved in with a guy and his girlfriend during the time after I had sold the house. I was waiting for it to close. So because he was a great friend, of course, but he also is an expert on electric, installations. So I knew that the solar panel and getting all the electricity run was going to go very well with him. And so I was going to do that with him. And then I was probably going to drive to Georgia where I had another friend who is a construction guy, and we were going to work on the rest of the stuff. So anyway, I had this all planned out. And before the house closed, somebody reached out to me and said, hey, there's this van that's available that you might be interested in. Now, I had promised myself not to even look at vans until I had the money from the sale of the house. I did not want to put myself in a position where I was trying to figure out how to buy something and I didn't have the money to buy it. So he sent me this image, and it was the exact model, the exact year, and the exact mileage that it had that I wanted, in my manifestation request.
Mm-hmm.
And it also had already been built out. It had the solar panel on the roof. It had the bed. It had the kitchen. It had the seating and everything. And not only all of that, but it was the exact layout that I would have built myself if I were to make it. And so I'm looking at this thing, and it's in Minnesota. I was in Chicago at the time, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I have to buy this. And so a very long process that I won't bore you all the details in, but I had to borrow money from people so that I could purchase the van straight up, because of course this was just from a regular seller. So I couldn't get a loan on it. Nobody would loan me anything for it. I had to just go and find the way to get the money. And because I didn't give up and I just kept asking, I had two very willing participants, one an ex of mine who gave me half the money, and I was able to just go and sight unseen, I brought my other vehicle up, sold it, walked in, bought the van, and drove it home, and it's perfect. And so I've been traveling around the country since October of last year, all the way up until Monday, where I was in Los Angeles. And there was quite a few kind of negative things happening there that I went, I wonder if I shouldn't probably get out of here, because with the martial law kind of concept coming at me, I'm thinking, if I'm living in a van, if my home, they tell me to go home and I just point at my vehicle, what are they going to do? I don't want to put that in their control. I don't want them to decide what to do with me. I've got a dog with me and all that. I just didn't want to have to worry about it. So I have a friend in Phoenix, which is where I am now, living in his house that you can see behind me. So for the first time in 4 or 5 months, I'm actually in a large space, which is kind of strange for me. But it's up until that point, it's been a blast driving around in my van. And I've been going to different events. Like I got to speak at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. I've been setting up my own workshops and talks through on my journey. And I had a whole bunch scheduled for this summer. And of course, now they're all canceled or postponed. But, that's exactly how it was supposed to go. So I'm not worried about it. And once this is all done, I'll be right back on the road again, I'm sure.
Yeah. Moving it all online, honey one. Moving it all online.
Right.
I'm lucky because everything I'm doing is online, so it's all good. All right, I'm going to throw it open to the tribe, the tribe. I love that, the terrestrial
emotions.
I've never heard that before, Xane. That's fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah.
Our terrestrial emotions, because usually when we put the word terrestrial, it's extraterrestrial. We're usually talking about, we forget that we are the terrestrials.
Right, exactly. And the other thing that's really cool about it is you can really break the emotions into two categories. There's the terrestrial emotions, and then there's the spirit side emotions, except that could just be one, not a plural word. Unconditional love is the spirit side emotion, and all the rest are the terrestrial emotions. And we believe that part of the reason that we're here is to have unconditional love for all. And it is, right? However, what's the challenge for us is that unconditional love is not a terrestrial emotion, especially unconditional love for all. Because if you think about all of the terrestrial emotions, they're all based on death and survival and furthering of the species. It does not help our primitive ancestors to have unconditional love for all during their survival, because they could open themselves up for being slaughtered by a rival village or whatever. And so that's what makes it more challenging for us, because it's somewhat unnatural based on our primitive three-dimensional programming. So that's why you have to enlighten yourself and to move up into a higher vibration, so that you can tap into this emotion that isn't readily available when we're at this lower tier. So that's the kind of the fun challenge of it, and the excitement for me, because unconditional love for all is enlightenment. They're the same exact thing. We talk about enlightenment a lot, and that becomes kind of a nebulous term. But when you can actually define it just simply, enlightenment is having unconditional love for all, seeing yourself in all. Wow, that's a lot more attainable. That's something that I can get excited about, and I can go, I kind of know what that looks like. Enlightenment is just like, oh, I see a guy, like a monk in a cave in Tibet. I don't know what that is. So I'm excited about like bringing the understanding of the two emotional categories to light, and then also just briefly saying that if this is our unconditional love and this is the terrestrial emotions, this unconditional love side is a mountain range, and the terrestrial emotions fit all of them in a grain of sand, in their difference, in their power, in their uh, everything, in their everything. So like unconditional love is an infinite emotion. It is what everything is made out of. It is the spirit world. Mm-hmm. The terrestrial emotions are all finite, and they all have a duration and an expiration date. You cannot have fear for forever. You will eventually die at the very least, and then you will no longer have fear, right? But most of the time, even in our day-to-day lives, all the emotions that we experience are fairly short-lived. It's about where we default to when we're done having extreme emotional experiences on the graph. Where do you end up in your day-to-day? Do you end up at a lower emotional state, or do you end up at a higher emotional state? Because that helps you, as you raise your vibration, the higher and higher and higher you can default to, still experiencing all the other emotions, because they're fine to experience for short term. But getting back to that higher and higher default is the path to that enlightened state.
Oh yeah, I heard recently, and I can't remember who said it. Someone. You know that those terrestrial emotions are not real, like fear. Let's look at fear, because
Right.
they require a thought in order to exist.
Sure, absolutely.
And unconditional love, does unconditional love require a thought?
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about, because like
I love that. It's really good.
Yeah, like we can have thoughts that get us there, like appreciation, gratitude, I love you, this is beautiful, isn't this great, excitement. Like we can think about it, we can move up that emotional scale from fear to love. And then kind of like you break out into this realm of, like you said, this massive unconditional love, and then you're just there. And now it doesn't actually require thought, because now you're home. You're just home. You're just swimming in the sea of infinite beauty and bliss, and which is a lot of the conversations that I have on the show with people that have died, had Kundalini experiences, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, in Sanskrit, they call that Paramananda. That is the bliss state that you receive, or that you achieve, when you have unconditional love for all / see yourself in all. And from my understanding, I don't know if I've totally hit Paramananda, but from my understanding, it is thousands of times more pleasurable than the most pleasurable thing that you can possibly imagine here in your normal 3D life. And that would probably be some sort of tantra orgasm or something, thousands of times more pleasurable than that. And it's something that comes on slowly, and that continuously builds and builds and builds. And once it reaches some sort of high level, which it probably never will reach a peak, you pretty much know that for the rest of your life, you will continue to feel that way. It's unlikely to come right back down. So it's definitely something wonderful to pursue. And
absolutely. Look, I haven't hit it either. Really, it's just an understanding for me at this point in my life.
Right.
But, as I try to live it more on a daily basis, as I endeavor to live it, to live the truth of who I am, as we endeavor to live it, we just find that life becomes more and more joyous, and fear subsides. And then we can do, as you talked about, we can hit the trauma, and inside the trauma we can get excited instead of fearful, because it's that journey towards that enlightenment, which a lot of people have had with near-death experiences. And actually, Xane, a lot of the people that I've had on the show who have had that experience either through a Kundalini or a near-death experience, you don't maintain it. In fact, it is
that's because it's called a Nanda when you experience it with Kundalini, and that is a different blissful experience, and it is short-lived.
Short-lived, yeah. And
Right.
then having had that sort of expansive experience, either in the body or out of the body, now you're back in the body with all your terrestrial emotions. I totally love that. And now you've got to try and navigate life, like, because you're different and you think differently. And actually, that has caused a lot of, yeah, that's been the most difficult part of the journey for many people who have had that bliss
Right. They want to come back to that. Well, but again, they've reached Ananda, which is a beautiful, blissful experience. But Paramananda is a different thing, and it's almost not equated in any way. Maybe the Kundalini awakening is a part or a first step to get to Paramananda, but it is not Paramananda. That is, and so the Ananda experience, the Kundalini awakening, is also kind of almost like a stressful joy, a stressful bliss, because they have palpitations, heart palpitations, and they're breathing heavy, and there's like this intensity to it, right? But Paramananda is a calm, gradual increase of a blissful feeling that you get to experience for the rest of your life.
Oh, nice. Okay. I remember Jerry Hicks talked about this. He said that I can't remember what happened. It might have been just a decision when he was a really young man. So he was the second part of Esther, Esther and Jerry Hicks. And he said that he experienced this blissful joyousness, like happiness that wouldn't go away. And he was young, and he'd be in his 80s if he's still alive now. So it was a long time ago in a different time. And he just thought that he was sick. And so he went to the doctor. There's something wrong with me. I'm just happy. I'm in this state of absolute joy.
That's a funny thing to go to the doctor for.
I know. And the doctor's like, yeah, that's totally not normal. There is something wrong with you.
Of course he did.
And so
Leave it to doctors.
I don't think he drugged him up. So we see being upset as normal and being in a constant state of joy as abnormal. Like that's the paradigm we've been living in, right?
Right. Yeah.
And Jerry said that he experienced it for months and months and months, and eventually it did subside. But so he was in that Paramananda state, I suspect, for that time.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want you to take a look at your body, not with your eyes, but with your feelings. And I want you to feel anything that is uncomfortable, anything that is unwanted. This can just simply be a physical pain, but it could also be a burden that you're carrying. So you can look and say, oh, my shoulders feel heavy. My chest feels tight. There's a pain or a flutter in my stomach, an ache in my neck. Whatever it is, I want you to focus on that. And if you can associate it with an emotion, then feel free to do so. And so from there, I want you to really feel what it feels like. Explore it. Think about how you might explain it to somebody else if you had to. Would you say that it's a burning? Would you say that it's a weight? Any of those terms that I used earlier, or something new, whatever it is that you're feeling. And then I want you to picture that I've injected you with a colored dye. This dye or ink, you choose the color or just allow it to appear. This dye or ink is attracted to this discomfort. And so if you could see yourself with an X-ray machine or an MRI machine or something, you now can see the shape of your discomfort feeling. And you can ask yourself, what is this shape? Is it a blob? Is it the shape of your muscle? Whatever it is, feel what it feels like and see what it looks like. And I want you to keep seeing it and keep feeling it all the way through the activation.
You're a rock star. You totally are a rock star. Yeah.
And I would love for everybody to jump on my site and sign up for my mailing list so you can find out about different appearances, although they're going to be all online appearances.
All online, yeah.
Yeah. But I would love for you guys to all be a part of my community. It would mean a lot.
Oh, Xane, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm also working really hard on making a whole bunch of YouTube videos. Like I've really never done anything with my channel. I just have like a couple of appearances on there and nothing. So I'm, now that I'm sequestered at home at somebody else's home, I'm going through and I'm creating a bunch of like 10 to 15 minute videos, and I'll be posting them every week too, so people can tune into those and get a lot of the stuff that we covered today will be in it, but other things as well. So I'm excited about that too.
It's really beautiful. Thank you so much. And just remind people of your website address. Well, I'll put it in the Inner Sanctum, but just...
you can see it's Xane, Xane, Daniel.com. We didn't even talk about the comic book, but that's righteouscomic.com.
Yeah.
So I write a comic book about enlightenment. So I'm trying to get entertainment out there that is similar to what we love.
Big love, everybody.
Thank you, Xane.
Thank you for joining. Thank you to all of you for holding the vibe, holding the love.
Yep.
Being the reminders for your community and your family and everything. You rock. You rock. I don't even remember.